This is Tampa Bay Today at Money Talk 1010 a.m. I am Schreiner, along with our executive producer, Pat George. The ongoing conversation on the topics of the day. It's news. It is the economy. It's jobs. It's social media trends. It's COVID and COVID-adjacent stories. We cover it all. But as you know, one of my favorite things to absolutely do on the show is to have conversations with people here in our community, with businesses and charities, with organizations that offer a product or service, and have these conversations about what's happening and how people can take advantage of these wonderful things that are happening. So today we have the opportunity to speak with Lindsay Carson from the Early Learning Coalition. Good afternoon, Lindsay. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for joining us on the show. I am all excited. And when it comes to supporting our children, giving them every possible advantage with their education to, as you guys say, engage, inspire, and elevate, I really am glad that we're having the opportunity to explain what the Early Learning Coalition of Pinellas County is and what it can do for our students. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and an overview of the coalition?
Absolutely. So I have been in the early learning space, started as a kindergarten teacher for over 20 years, have a strong passion for early learning, and at the Early Learning Coalition, what we really do is help to connect children with high-quality early learning opportunities. Our mission is kind of twofold. We're not only supporting today's workforce. There's no secret that families with young children need care for their children so that they can work and pursue their careers and educations themselves. And more importantly to us, on a day-to-day, we're preparing children for kindergarten. We talk a lot in our economy about workforce development, but the truth is that actually starts way before college and technical programs. It starts in early learning. 90%. Oh, go ahead.
No, I want to hear that stat in a second, but I was going to ask, I think that was one of the things that President Biden was trying to accomplish with some of his education goals recently, was that he wanted to extend the opportunity for education to younger students, as young as 3 and 4, I want to say, so that they had the opportunity to attend a public and a funded, like a preschool, like kindergarten is funded, K through 12. He wanted to expand that to younger students as well, I think.
Absolutely. That is part of, I believe, the infrastructure plan. Now, I will tell you, in Florida, way back in 2005, we launched Florida's voluntary pre-kindergarten program, which does provide free preschool for all 4-year-olds during that year before they enter into kindergarten.
Right.
So they have that early learning opportunity.
Right. Well, so you'll see the signs all over the place. Free VPK.
Yep.
And that's what it is. It's the voluntary pre-kindergarten. Which can be also a help for families that are trying to make ends meet. And if both parents need to work, now you've got a time where the children are actually in a learning situation and not just being daycare. It's an advance on their education.
Right. We've moved way past the old daycare days.
Right.
Early learning is really developing the brains of our young children. 90% of the brain synapses of your entire life are formed before you ever set foot in the kindergarten classroom. Our early learning providers, the VPK providers and others, are really developing those early learning and early literacy and language skills.
Right.
That are those pre-reading skills that, of course, we all know are so important in learning. Social emotional skills and self-regulation, managing their emotions, another critical piece. But when we think about future workforce, we're also looking at executive functioning skills. And those are things like pursuing a task in the face of a challenge, communication, and getting along with others. Now, from a workforce standpoint, those are things that are really important to us as adults, but
right.
Those skills are developed in those early learning environments in a play-based environment.
Right, which I guess is why there was so much popularity and truth behind that book, All I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, because it really starts that early. There's so much that children learn about leadership, about rules and when to question, and it all happens in the classroom, which we know what sponges children are. If you pay attention to your children at all, every little thing you do, they try to mimic and follow. And if we can get them into these educational opportunities, we can really start advancing ourselves generationally. It's a big picture approach that we can start doing things about now.
Absolutely. And really, that starts with infancy. The voluntary pre-kindergarten program here in Florida is a fantastic program, but early learning even begins before then. So Florida's VPK program offers about a 3-hour day for our 4-year-olds before they enter into kindergarten. However, here in Pinellas County, we are fortunate for our partnerships with the Department of Education and also the Juvenile Welfare Board to be able to offer full-day early learning opportunities for VPK children that are eligible based on income so that they get that full-day experience and families have that full day of care so that they can pursue their work efforts as well. And we've been very fortunate to have that.
I was just looking at that on your website, the Early Learning Coalition of Pinellas County. And I'll give this several times, elcpinellas.net. And I was looking under the tab for families as you were discussing that. Not only do you have the voluntary pre-K, but there's the pre-K all day you were talking about. So you have a lot of resources online already for people that just want to start thinking, okay, I have a child that's going to be 3 years old. What's available to me? What would be something for childcare resources that somebody might be surprised is offered by the Early Learning Coalition?
We offer subsidies for early learning programs for children as young as 6 weeks old. Our school readiness program, which is actually our larger program, uses a sliding scale. There is eligibility criteria and based on income and also some work requirements or educational requirements, activities of the parents. But we aim to help every child have access to high-quality early learning, and we do that through these scholarships. The other side of our shop is that we work with close to 500 preschools, licensed family child care home providers to support the development of our early learning workforce, quality programming, technical support, so they have the training, the resources, the curriculum that they need to ensure our children's success in their programs. So we do a lot of work to help support quality environments in our early learning settings.
We're speaking with Lindsay Carson from the Early Learning Coalition of Pinellas County, and that was one of the things that I wasn't expecting when I started to learn about the organization and everything that's offered, how much work you do, not with the families and the children, but with the care providers that are going to be taking these children in so that they have all the resources and the education they need to give the best possible experience to the children.
Yeah, they are on the front line, and so we take, a lot of time and effort in supporting them in their efforts because they're with the children every day.
So can you explain, how would somebody best reach out to you for information about what they should be doing to prepare their children?
Well, we certainly have resources on our website, and we do, as I mentioned, work very closely with our early learning providers, but there are also very simple things like there's an app called Vroom that gives parents tips and information on things they can do to support their child's development at home.
Okay.
We also we push the 3 T's in partnership with PNC Bank, the tune in, talk more, and take turns. And that's really just having that serve and return conversation and engaging our children. You mentioned earlier that kids really do mimic those interactions, those conversations. That's what really develops their thinking and their vocabulary, the things that are really going to set them on a path for success as they go into school. And all of that information is available on our website for families. We also have child care resource and referral, which can help families in choosing quality child care. So we can provide listings and guidance and information so that families know what to look for when they're looking for a quality early learning environment. For many of us, it's kind of an intimidating experience. You're not sure exactly what you're supposed to be looking for, and so we can provide guidance on how and what types of things you should be paying attention to when looking to find a program that'll best meet your child's needs.
Especially if it's a parent's first child.
Yeah,
as much
absolutely.
as much as you think you could be a 30-something-year-old professional having your first child, but when you have that baby, we all have that moment. Now what do I do? Now, you have to start thinking about school and planning ahead and how do I, it's one thing that to sit at home and to read to them and to show them by example how important education is. But a lot of times you don't even know where to go. If I have to go back to work, where do I look for childcare? Where do I find someone that's been vetted that I can trust or count on? Or what what should I be doing at home now before they go to school so that they are ready for those early experiences as kids are going to school earlier and earlier now. So
yeah. Every parent wants what's best for their kid, without a doubt. I've never met a parent who didn't want the very best for their children. And there is a lot of pressure these days, it feels like, in terms of, what kids need to know as they go into kindergarten. And it can be tempting for parents to want them, reading fluently by age 2.5 or things
Right.
like that. And in reality, when we talk about kindergarten readiness, we're not talking about teaching them skills before they're ready. We're talking about providing a really solid foundation in a developmentally appropriate way.
Right.
That allows, it should be a play-based environment. It should be, a natural experience for them, but just with a lot of opportunities to make choices and experiential learning.
Well, I was even having a discussion recently with a group of businessmen, and they were discussing the challenges of, even in adulthood, finding the ways that each person learns best. Some people can read and they'll absorb it all. Other people have to put their hands on something to learn how to do it. With children, I'm sure there are patterns, but every kid is going to be a little different in the way they respond best to education, I would imagine, correct?
Absolutely. Certainly learning styles vary, and we see that in both children and adults. What's different in the early learning environment is that our children developmentally, they haven't developed the abstract thinking.
Okay.
So we do not promote worksheets, for example, in early learning. We promote hands-on experience. They don't need to look at a picture of a block tower. They need to touch and feel the blocks and put it up, because they actually have to experience it before they can then connect it in the brain into abstract thinking. So that's why the play-based environment, that hands-on experiential, environment is so important. With COVID hitting, the idea of a virtual pre-K program was almost impossible, and our partners did the very best they could with it. Certainly depended on the parents to create those hands-on experiences, but in reality, it has to be face-to-face. That's where they're at developmentally in order for us to succeed in preparing them for kindergarten.
See, I was going to ask that very question, and you answered it ahead of time with what were the challenges you were facing with COVID? Because so many businesses that we've had on the show to talk about how they had to pivot or make things work in a different way. When you're dealing with something that is most effective face-to-face or hands-on, like you just mentioned, there isn't a way to pivot unless every parent can go out and buy all the tools and resources and then sit at home and do it as well. And not every parent can buy every little thing that is going to help their children to learn and grow.
And a lot of families, they were, especially the families that we serve, they were essential workers. And they are, the folks at the grocery store that are checking us out or working in the hospitals, and so they needed care regardless. And I'll tell you, our early learning providers, when so much of our community shut down, our early learning providers and child care providers continued to persevere and navigate these uncharted waters so that they could provide those essential services to children so that families could work. They were essential to all the other essential industries. So they learned really quickly how to manage all the protocols and safety protocols and, spread mitigation and all of that to continue to offer. But we still saw a decline in enrollment, which brings a concern that we could have more children entering kindergarten without those necessary skills because they didn't get the early learning experience. And understandably, parents are protecting their children. We all had to face that. But it's not too late. They could actually still participate in a summer VPK program.
Oh, that'd be great. Here's a thought, though, too, and I'm not sure this is going to apply, but I'm curious about it because I've talked about it with a number of different subjects. For example, food deserts, where there are communities where people don't have quality groceries within walking distance. There healthcare deserts, where it's difficult to get in to see a practitioner. Is the same thing happening in certain communities with education, where a certain demographic may have difficulty getting the quality early education? Or is that the gap that you're filling with the Early Learning Coalition?
Well, we're definitely working consciously to fill those gaps. So when we look at our quality programs and supports that we offer to our teachers and early education providers, we certainly look at what areas need more support to ensure access to quality. In general, we have pretty good access. The area where we struggle the very most is in access to infant and toddler care.
Okay.
Of course, the ratios are lower. You can only handle so many babies at a time, right? Mm-hmm. So the finding infant care is one of the biggest challenges, and especially right now because we have had many industries have faced staffing shortages, and certainly we've experienced that in early learning. We were struggling with workforce before COVID, and it's been exacerbated now. So we are finding that we have families who are saying, I'm going back to work, I'm doing these things, but I can't find infant care. So we are unique in Pinellas that we have a strong network of family child care home providers in addition to our center-based, traditional preschools. And there's actually opportunities to expand that workforce where families or, folks could become licensed family child care homes and help us to expand capacity for infant and toddler care and develop a career path for themselves while also helping to meet that need in the community and caring for our infants in a nurturing environment.
So much of what we're discussing is available for further review, and to get more information at your website, it's elcpinellas.net. Again, this is for the Early Learning Coalition. You were just talking about jobs, and here you have community jobs. If you're in search of a position within the child care community, you have job openings, there's training, there are bonuses, career pathway, tuition assistance, all available through ELC Pinellas is what it looks like here. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We have really worked with our partners in the community and, of course, our providers to develop a system that doesn't just get people a job, but really puts them on a career pathway, a very rewarding career pathway in early education. We can help people get their degrees and advance and really have such a meaningful impact on our youth and, kind of cliche, but really change the future.
Again, we're speaking with Lindsay Carson from the Early Learning Coalition of Pinellas County. Lindsay, is there anything else that I know we've only had a limited time, but what is one more thing that people should know about their children, their early learning opportunities, and the coalition?
I would say, number one, early learning matters. It is really important to a child's development, and it happens at home. It happens in the early learning setting. It happens at the grocery store when you're getting a free cookie and they are using the words to ask for it. Everyone can play a part in preparing our children for kindergarten and ensuring that our kids are on a path for success as they enter into the K-12 system. All of us are going to play a part in that, and certainly ELC is here to support our parents, our providers, our children in making that happen.
So a lot of the hard work has already been done for new parents because you'll have the information to help them along to make the right decisions for their kids.
Absolutely, and that's our goal, is to give parents the tools so that they can best make choices for their children.
Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on the show. I very much appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, and we'll hope, if you ever want to come back and talk about something, we didn't even get into Thrive by 5, and I wanted to, but we've run out of time. But if there's ever anything that you would like to discuss or to come back on the program, you have an open invitation so that we can do that, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
You too. Thank you so much. Again, that's Lindsay Carson with the Early Learning Coalition of Pinellas County. What great opportunities and things for your children in the early development sphere of education. This is Tampa Bay Today at Money Talk 1010 AM. We'll be right back.